Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're operating in the high-stakes world of multi-accounting right now in 2026, whether you're juggling a bunch of affiliate marketing campaigns, scaling e-commerce stores, or managing massive ad verification operations, you know the landscape has literally never been more ruthless. Detection algorithms are sharper, account bans are swifter, and the tools you choose can absolutely make or break your entire business. Today, we're breaking down a comprehensive analysis from Send.win that pits two of the absolute biggest heavyweights in the industry against each other. So it all really boils down to this one absolutely critical question: which Antidetect browser actually wins when your valuable accounts are on the line? We're going to use the data from our source to look right past the marketing hype, examine the actual architecture, and figure out exactly where these tools excel and, where they fall a bit short. Okay, let's dive right into this. Our roadmap for today covers the Antidetect browser battle, local versus cloud architecture, fingerprinting and automation, pricing and team workflows, and finally, the Send.win alternative. Section 1. The Antidetect browser battle, setting the stage in 2026. Undetectable Browser hit the scene back in 2020, and it's built on a standard Chromium base. Basically, this means it gets those regular, lightning-fast Chromium updates, which keeps its broad website compatibility super high. GoLogin, on the other hand, was founded a year earlier in 2019, and it takes a totally different route. It runs on the Orbita engine, which is a deeply modified version of Chromium. And as we'll see, this fundamental difference between a standard base and a custom engine creates massive ripple effects in how they perform under pressure. Moving on to Section 2, Local versus Cloud Architecture, the Philosophical Divide. Okay, so the real crux of the issue here is how these platforms actually handle your data and your processing power. Undetectable Browser, it's strictly local first. Your browser profiles are stored and run right there on your physical machine, which gives you absolute control over your data residency. The cloud is really only used to sync your configurations. The main advantage? Incredibly low latency and massive privacy. The downside? Well, your local RAM and CPU become the major bottleneck. GoLogin is pretty much the exact opposite. It's cloud first. Profiles launch directly from remote servers using their Orbita browser. This gives you ultimate portability and takes all that heavy lifting completely off your computer. But it does introduce a strict dependency on GoLogin servers actually being online, plus your session data lives on their infrastructure. Section 3. Fingerprinting and automation, evading detection. So how do they actually avoid getting caught? Well, Undetectable Browser tackles this using what they call configlets. These are pre-built fingerprint configurations that bundle up really complex parameters. We're talking things like canvas rendering, WebGL, audio context, and screen resolution into cohesive, totally realistic profiles. It uses real browser telemetry, so it's incredibly beginner-friendly. Instead of manually tweaking dozens of highly technical settings and, accidentally creating a totally unrealistic fingerprint, you just select a configlet that matches your target platform and boom, you're good to go. Now, contrast that with GoLogin's approach. They use their custom Orbita engine. Because Orbita is a custom fork of Chromium, GoLogin modifies the browser right at the engine level. They aren't just overwriting JavaScript on the surface. They are spoofing parameters deep inside the rendering pipeline. This makes it significantly harder for those advanced bot detection systems to catch you. But remember that architectural trade-off we mentioned earlier? Because it's a custom fork, there's occasionally an update lag where Orbita might trail behind the absolute latest stable Chromium release. And honestly, that can trigger some seriously annoying compatibility hiccups right when you least expect it. And this brilliantly illustrates how those two totally different approaches actually perform out in the wild. Both of them easily pass rigorous checks like Creep.js and WebGL spoofing. But notice the nuances here. Undetectable spoofs things like audio context and font enumeration via those prepackaged configlets, while GoLogin handles it all at the engine level. The sources analysis concludes that GoLogin's engine-level modifications give it a slight edge in consistency, especially if you're dealing with aggressive platforms like Amazon that run incredibly deep fingerprint analysis. Now, for all the power users and developers tuning in, automation is really where the gap widens. Both platforms totally support the basics: Selenium, Puppeteer, and REST APIs. But GoLogin pulls ahead by offering native playwright support, which is absolutely massive in the modern automation community. And crucially, they offer cloud-based automation. Because GoLogin is cloud-first, you can just spin up profiles directly on their servers, attach your scripts, and run headless sessions without ever taxing your own hardware. Undetectable, on the other hand, is entirely limited to local automation. All right, Section 4, Pricing and Team Workflows, Scaling Your Operations. $49 a month. That is the exact entry price point for the professional tiers on both of these platforms. But what you actually get for that identical price tag is remarkably different. Look, if you're totally bootstrapped, Undetectable Browser definitely wins the free tier by offering 5 free profiles compared to GoLogin's 3. But the second you hand over that $49 for the professional plan, GoLogin gives you double the volume, 100 profiles, versus Undetectable's 50. The source's verdict here is pretty clear. Undetectable is great for budget-conscious users who really prioritize local storage, but GoLogin simply delivers way more profiles per dollar at the paid tiers. And those scaling differences, they become even more obvious the second you start adding team members. Let's talk about the friction factor for a second. Undetectable does support profile sharing, but because it's a local-first architecture, sharing requires local sync through the cloud. The source notes this feels a bit, well, bolted on, and can actually create sync conflicts if multiple people try to edit something simultaneously. GoLogin, however, features native cloud workspaces. Multiple team members can access the profile store seamlessly from literally any device, even just through a standard web browser, with zero sync friction. Which brings us to Section 5, the Send.win alternative, the third option. The source's analysis perfectly frames the big problem here with this quote. Neither platform fully solves the fundamental tension between local control and cloud scalability. Think about it. If you go local, you eventually run out of RAM. If you go to the cloud with a forked engine, you get hit with update lag. This is the ultimate bottleneck of legacy anti-detect architectures. So, the source introduces Send.win as a fully cloud-native anti-detect browser to try and solve this whole mess. According to their analysis, Send.win runs every single profile in an isolated cloud container. This means literally zero local resources are consumed. You could practically run 100 profiles from a basic tablet if you wanted to. And because it doesn't rely on a forked browser installation, the source claims it remains always up to date, completely sidestepping the Orbita engine's lag while still delivering native team collaboration right out of the box. Bringing all of this data together, the source lays out a really handy map of exactly which tool fits which user persona. If you're a solo affiliate who deeply values local data privacy and wants a generous free tier with those easy configlets, Undetectable Browser is your go-to tool. If you run an agency managing a ton of e-commerce accounts and you need higher profile limits with killer automation support, GoLogin is the heavyweight champion. But if you demand absolute cloud scalability without any hardware constraints holding you back, the source points to Send.win as the ultimate 2026 choice. And that leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question to chew on. Which architectural philosophy are you going to choose to scale your multi-account ambitions? Are you firmly planted in the local control camp? Do you absolutely need the engine-level spoofing of GoLogin? Or is a fully cloud-native approach the actual future of your workflow? It's all about matching the tool's DNA to your specific bottlenecks. So take a hard look at your current operations, evaluate exactly where you're feeling the most friction, and let that guide your decision. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.